Alright, so, well, let me get into this. So, as an organized group, they do things in sub-factions. And so, essentially, like, the structure of what they do, see, right now the heat's on for gang cops. So, they pull back. They essentially, online, they essentially go into a smaller subgroup. I talked about, like, the government one, and that now it's the econ one. So it'll have a slightly different makeup of the group. But as a whole, they're a whole mafia. And that this is where everything they've done is to structure themselves into literally a mafia. Okay? And so as it moves down to econ, okay, so I'm going to explain econ gang because essentially they structure themselves like a Cosa Nostra. I think it's the dumbest thing ever in the world because it gives the government a whole slew of extra fucking legal tools against them. I mean, honestly, look what you cops did with the mafia in Europe and shit. So, so Econ Gang. Econ Gang, the purpose of Econ Gang is to run essentially a witness group that's groomed, and essentially it's made up of witness group with people with seemingly proper character. Usually it'll be like a preppy hacker, like a football quarterback and like a baseball pitcher or a soccer player or something like that. And that then essentially they have these groups that do online churches that are able to operate as a church but are doing porn and stuff, and they essentially operate a church under the guidelines of the government and shit, okay? And so I call them Amazon online porn church. People in Kennewick, Amazon are the ones in that. That's who that is here. And that they are essentially the hacker group that steals videos, reworks them to be like confessions, but then also reworks them to be building like V for Vendetta vigilantes, okay? And so then around here is the Catholic school and econ gang, okay? The Catholic school here, and that they're essentially high school prostitute groups that then they like to, in their free time, they like to do somewhat of like an intelligence analysis. They'll essentially talk backwards about their target, and that then they build metadata evidence and they rework meta that then becomes doctored evidence that leads into these fake false testimonies from these witnesses, okay? And so then essentially here they have subcontractors out here at Hanford that have Mormons that essentially, here's a little side aspect, they're pulling out espionage to build some new kind of company, okay? And that they essentially are kind of like the guy that got his head bashed over in the Severance from Lumen Corp. They're like that. They're like those people, okay? They in a psychology way, okay? And so essentially from that person like that person impersonates a federal agent with a clearance and then gives authority to the group. And that then here in this town, there's a trios doctor that's Mormon. That's also, here's a side aspect. He's the doctor that outfits these like highly victimized children victim with sound speakers and eye cameras that they run a whole like online exploitation through VR sloth methods with like weird porn group pedophile groups. He's the one that outfits those children. And that basically what he does in econ gang is he likes to prove that he controls the person's mind by putting in audios that essentially if the person responds to it, then then they like disregard what the person says based on forcing in audios that are essentially like in like an internal dialogue way, and that he's like highly trained at like, and he does this with these Cup 44 Mormon hookup site guys, and that's like where essentially these people like they put in low volume audios on their targeted victims, that they put that stuff, the speakers in and shit, and that then they're just trained at doing this low volume like manipulation of what somebody says stuff, and then that's meant to prove why all of their evidence or something is like credible, and why that what that person says is incredible. But that essentially what that sociopath is doing is sociopathic torture and indentured servitude, because in his like weird schizoid problem, he like claims that everybody that he puts speakers in is his fucking slave or something. And so that is what this group does. It leads into basically a reasoning. The cops, they essentially use this to exonerate themselves here, and then they run a behind the scenes court evidence, and then they filter information out. This is also how they do Cayman Island patsy ideas and shit. Okay, and this is how they like filter their evidence out that scrubs the involvement of these people doing this cop gang shit. Okay, and that this is why I wondered who was going to be on the oversight stuff for like intelligence for the lawyers and shit, because this is where they'll be scripting information out, and that the cops will probably already have a highly paranoid planned group or targeting group that will want to insert themselves in the lawyers like oversight investigation and subpoena investigation, and that they'll want to push people to be trained at having specific analysis type of stuff, and that is kind of where this type of stuff is what those people do when they're targeting one of their victims that starts talking about their whatever they're doing. Okay, and so let me just go through how that is considered a gang. They're assembling in more than two. Okay, and that then they are doing false testimony, witness tampering, and witness grooming. So that could be a problem in a subpoena way, that essentially that they're this is why I wondered, because they'll be coming in like a Trojan horse or a wolf in sheep's clothing kind of method, where they'll be wanting to be pulling specifically known witnesses or testimony that will already be groomed to be scrubbing certain aspects to what they would have actually witnessed some highly illegal stuff, but they'll want specific people that have a specific grooming that then manipulates the investigation. So then they also do voyeur exploitation and theft of intellectual property. Then they rework the videos to build hacker vigilantes, and that's illegal too. And so then data manipulation of meta is also illegal, and that because they're stealing the meta, and that then they're doctoring it and attempting to form it into a piece of evidence. So that's doctoring evidence, okay? So impersonation of a federal agent with a fake clearance, that is an extreme crime. And that then to give authority to the gang to be running a criminal organization has another side crime to it, and then they operate with impunity under some thought of like a working with some sort of Mormon based Q clearance here. So then they engage in placing audios in the speaker, and then that is a capital offense, torture. And then they are essentially trying to, sometimes they come out saying that they're trying to torture out the information of their victim and shit. And so that is a slaving method and forcing somebody in an indentured servitude kind of way. But I mean, that's kind of like where they view certain people, that they outfit that stuff as their slaves to torture information out of and shit. Okay? and that they have a whole procedural organization group that does that, that's gathered in more than two, and that this is where it's like a sub gang to the whole mafia, right?